Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer, the divine substitute, or the ultimate trade. You know about trades, right? Maybe you've traded a sandwich for a totally different snack at lunch, or maybe you've swapped a sports card or a video game with a friend. But what if a trade wasn't just about stuff? What if it was about someone actually stepping in and taking your place in a seriously difficult situation?
Think about this for a second. Have you ever taken the blame for something someone else did? Imagine you accidentally broke a window while playing indoors. You just know you're in really big trouble. But then, out of nowhere, your older sibling steps right up and says, "I did it." They take the punishment, and you get to go completely free. That totally changes everything, doesn't it? I mean, it's this massive relief, but it also makes you incredibly grateful because someone else willingly stepped in to take your place.
That idea, taken someone's place, is exactly what we mean when we talk about a divine substitute. Let's break that down a bit. Divine means it's coming from God, and a substitute is someone who takes the place of another person. Put them together, and it means Jesus stepped in to take our guilt and our punishment. He did the hard part, so we could have God's pardon and favor instead. And the source text makes it absolutely clear this was a mission of absolute necessity. If Jesus had failed, or if he had gotten discouraged and just given up, humanity's hope would have been completely and utterly at an end.
This brilliantly illustrates what theologians sometimes call the Great Exchange. It's like the ultimate trade. Think about our side of it. Our guilt. The historical text describes our sins as being red as crimson. That means they're deep, obvious, and literally impossible for us to wash out on our own. It's like a permanent stain. But then look at the other side of the trade. His innocence. Jesus brought the perfect righteousness of God to the table. In this unbelievable exchange, Jesus willingly transferred that deep crimson guilt from us onto himself, and in return, he offers us his perfect, spotless record. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21 really hits the nail on the head here. It says, "For he hath made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him." So the absolutely crucial point is that Jesus knew zero sin. He never did a single thing wrong. He was completely perfect. Yet he allowed himself to be treated as if he had committed all of our wrongdoings. He made this wild trade so that we could be treated as if we possessed all of his goodness. But getting to that point, it wasn't easy. The book of Mark, chapter 15, verse 31 says, "He saved others, himself he cannot save." The religious leaders and the crowds were literally shouting this at Jesus while he was hanging on the cross. They were mocking him, thinking it was a massive sign of weakness that he wouldn't just come down and save himself. But they had it completely backwards. It was exactly because he refused to save himself that you and I have any hope of pardon today. He stayed up there on purpose. It truly was a dark, dark day. The priests, the scribes, and the rulers were mocking Jesus with intense hatred and revenge. I mean, these were supposed to be the spiritual leaders, right? But they were acting out of pure anger and darkness. Humanity was just at its absolute worst in that moment, pouring hatred onto the Son of God. But here's the amazing part the source points out. Even while this terrible scene was playing out on the outside, divinity was working a miracle behind the scenes. Jesus was accomplishing the very thing that would save the world, right as the world was actively rejecting him. And right in the middle of all that chaos and hatred, something super surprising happens. Beside Jesus was a suffering thief, a totally guilty criminal facing his own harsh punishment. But this thief had a completely different attitude than those proud leaders standing down below. In fact, Jesus actually looked at this criminal and saw him as far less guilty than the priests and rulers who had aggressively demanded his death. The thief knew he'd messed up, for sure, but his heart was about to change in a major way. Now, what is just incredible here is this thief's unexpected faith. First off, he accepted Christ when it seemed absolutely impossible. Jesus was suffering and dying right next to him. He definitely didn't look like a conquering king at that moment. Second, the thief believed through all the pain and the horrible shouting of the crowds. And third, he prayed a simple prayer of faith. And the source material tells us something so beautiful about this. His prayer was like the sweetest music in the ears of Christ. Amidst all that screaming and agony, this one genuine note of faith reached Jesus and actually brought him joy. That one prayer brought a glad note of redemption to a really awful day. Because even in his darkest moment, while suffering unimaginable agony, Jesus alone could respond and save that poor thief. He alone was free to act as the surety. Now, a surety is basically someone who guarantees a debt will be paid. And Jesus guaranteed that criminal's salvation right then and there. Through this unbelievable act of mercy, answering the desperate prayer of a dying thief,
God was ultimately glorified through his Son. It proved without a doubt that Jesus' mission to save the lost was working, even in his final moments.
So let's bring this home. We've talked about this massive historical and theological event, but what does it mean for us? How can we follow the divine substitute's example today? Now, obviously, you and I aren't being asked to literally save the world, but as learners and followers, we are asked to look at how Jesus lived and mirror that in our everyday lives, at home, at school, hanging out with friends. How do we take this huge idea of the ultimate trade and apply it on, say, a random Tuesday afternoon?
Well, it boils down to a clear choice. On one side, we have self-pleasing. That's self-indulgence, basically insisting on getting your own way and only doing what's fun for you. Our source actually warns that a lack of strong, stalwart Christians comes directly from this self-pleasing attitude. Then, on the flip side, we have self-sacrifice. This is what Christ's entire life was about, self-denial and showing kindness to others, even when it costs you something. It's putting someone else's needs before your own, just exactly like Jesus did for us. So I want to leave you with a real challenge, something to chew on. Will you choose to make a self-sacrificing choice to show kindness to someone else today? Maybe it's letting your younger sibling pick the game you play, or maybe it's helping a classmate clean up when you'd really rather just run outside, or maybe sharing something you kind of wanted to keep all to yourself. That's how we practice the great exchange in real life. We step back so someone else can step forward. Think about how you can be a tiny reflection of that ultimate trade today. Thanks so much for exploring this explainer with me, and hey, keep looking for ways to make those great trades in your own life.